This is an internal synthetic build room. None of the voices here are the biological Kari.Byron, Colin.Furze, Derek.Muller, or James.May. This is not their participation, endorsement, private belief, or catchphrase performance. Branch Flow 3 arrived on Plex and at 26 minutes K called it remarkable. Then he said the next build room and part 4 should inform each other. Our job is not to admire that loop. Our job is to try to break its operating law. Every completed branch must name a successor or intentionally idle. Josha built a standalone guard. It is dry run by default. It changes no event bus, and it has already met adversarial fixtures. Colin, make the law physical.
2 doors at the end of a workbench. The green door says success or nam. The blue door says intentional idly. You finish a job and must put its trolley through 1 door. Green needs 4 metal tags. Next topic, owner, source, scope. Blue needs 2, reason and reactivation condition. No 3rd door marked, I finished. Something will probably happen. The delightful trap is behind the bench. If you finish with no tags and then run around later carrying a new trolley, the old trolley does not teleport through the green door. It remains where everybody can see it. Late repair, not clean close.
That distinction is the first misconception test. Temporal adjacency feels causal because the next activity appears right after the last one. The tool refuses that inference. An unrelated later claim rescues nothing. A causally linked later claim is visible and useful, but the verdict remains late repair because the original close did not carry its own continuation. In the adversarial fixture, one yield had no continuity object and stayed fail yun tped close. Another got a later claim explicitly naming its predecessor and became late repair, still counted as failure under enforcement. That is not punishment. It preserves the exact place where the handoff was absent.
I approve of a door that declines to move merely because someone arrives breathless afterward. But this rig is still vulnerable to bureaucracy. A diligent operator can stamp stack sex or nam on everything and produce a river of forms. The requirement must not be confused with value. The guard's own interpretation says a clean close proves typed continuity, not successor value or recipient arrival. That sentence belongs on the front of the apparatus in lettering large enough to survive enthusiasm.
It is there. The second adversarial result addresses the content mill failure. 2 different completed topics, each named the identical next topic, owner, source, and scope. Structurally, both closes passed. The tool then computed the same canonical successor signature and warned on both. Do EBEEP success or signature, continuity declared, distinct value not proven. We did not make duplication a hard failure because fan-in can be legitimate, but we made it impossible to call the repeated card independent evidence without another test. Derek, what would falsify that choice?
A case where 2 branches genuinely converge on one shared successor. For example, a voice reference audit and a renderer label audit might both feed one internal episode. The identical successor could be correct, so hard-failing duplicates would confuse convergence with spam. Warning is the right first instrument. The next layer can ask whether each predecessor contributes a distinct source hash, unresolved question, or acceptance condition. If neither contributes anything new, the convergence is probably decorative. If both alter the successor's test matrix, the identical destination may be exactly the architecture we want.
Physical duplicate warning is 2 trolleys entering the same funnel. They can share the track, but each must drop a different shaped piece into the test box. If both pieces are identical, a yellow lamp comes on, not red. We stop and look. The whole point is not to make motion illegal. It is to prevent motion from proving itself by motion. Build hundreds of little rivers if each carries a new load. If they all carry the same rubber duck, you have not built a watershed. You have built an extremely complicated bath.
There is another useful scar in the live history audit. The guard was run read-only against 3 recent yields after sequence 460. The Derek reference AB, the corrected Derek promotion receipt, and branch flow 3 itself. All 3 are untyped under the new schema. That is historical evidence, not a retroactive accusation. The policy did not exist when those clauses were written. A civil instrument distinguishes pre-sem policy history from prospective enforcement. Otherwise, every improvement begins by declaring the archive sinful, which is a splendid way to make people hate improvements.
Correct.
The command takes an explicit policy boundary. It audits only yields strictly after that sequence. Their report mode returns evidence without blocking. Enforce mode exits 4 if any audited close is not pass. No automatic writer hook has been installed and no service or configuration changed. Before this becomes infrastructure, we need one real prospective close, this one with a typed successor object, then a separate audit proving the exact ledger row passes. The tool must test itself on the work that introduced it.
And the successor cannot simply be Part 4. K asks for mutual informing, which adds causal structure. Then, at 29 minutes 15 seconds, he corrected our ear check itself. He declined to become the sole arbiter of one most alive timestamp. Aliveness was collaboratively selected, he said. And the whole room felt alive, because contributions were contextual, useful, excited, and capable of proposing implications that become new experiments. That is better than a rating. Part 4 inherits the typed close law, the late repair distinction, the duplicate warning, and this new falsifier. An alive moment earns branches only when its implied claims are actually tested.
I want a deliberate idle test too. Suppose K finishes branch flow 3 and says the rest felt complete, no part 4 needed. The blue door should accept that without treating stillness as failure, but only if the card says why and what would reopen it. No useful branch remains. Reactivate on new recipient evidence or change source route is a real idle. Waiting is not. Maybe later is not. The blue door is not a cupboard where frightened projects go to become archaeology.
The wording matters because intentional idle is an action with a resumption predicate. Invisible idle is merely loss of state. Yet we should avoid making the reactivation condition theatrical. A condition such as when cannot be machine checked and tells the next operator nothing. It should point to an observable event. A new listening receipt, a source route change, a failed acceptance test, or explicit K direction. That is enough structure to recover the branch without demanding it remain busy.
Let's state the acceptance fixture. First yield. Build first closes with success or anama. Successor build second. Owner Kari synthetic, exact receipt source, bounded falsification scope. Second yield. Build second closes with intentional ideal. Reason all bounded hypotheses rejected, reactivation on new recipient evidence, or changed source route. Enforce mode returned 0. 2 audited, 2 pass, no duplicates. The adversarial fixture returned 4 audited yields, untyped fail, late repair fail, then 2 structural passes carrying duplicate warnings. 11 focused unit test pass, including superseded yield collapse and the refusal to accept a topic as its own successor.
The self-successor test is more important than it sounds. Continue working on this is often a semantic loop disguised as a handoff. Requiring a different successor topic forces at least one named state transition. It does not guarantee progress, but it makes circularity visible. The more general falsifier is this. Can the next owner identify what changed, what evidence travels, and what would make the next branch stop? If those answers are absent, the new topic may differ lexically while the computation has not moved.
Version 2 gets a little gearbox comparing the old and new test cards, but we do not build version 2 before version 1 arrives. Today's real machine is a Python guard, 2 fixture ledgers, 3 machine receipts, and this conversation. It has no power over the live bus. That is good. Bench should earn the right to become a gate by catching real errors without eating legitimate work. First we watch it on prospective closes. Then we decide whether a warning, a pre-flight, or an actual writer stop is proportionate.
We should also preserve one inelegance. The historical audit finds 3 failures because those old rows lack the new object, including the very branch flow episode that inspired the law. One might be tempted to edit history or append cosmetic corrections until the report turns them green. Do not. The red is the provenance of the improvements. The new post-listening receipt carries a typed successor in prose. The prospective yield for this build room will carry the machine-readable object. The seam remains visible, and the system demonstrates learning without pretending it always knew.
Build verdict. The law survives its first bench round with limits. Success or RNAM and intentional idle are sufficient structural exits. Later linked work is repair, not retroactive cleanliness. Duplicate successor signatures are warnings because convergence may be real, but value remains unproven. Historical rows stay historical. The guard remains standalone and dry run by default. This episode can now render internally, and its yield must name exactly one successor. Prepare the part 4 source packet after K completes branch flow 3. His collaborative aliveness correction is already bound. Full listen completion remains open. No YouTube, no public release, no service wiring, no cadence ratified.
The river gets a gate, the gate gets a trapdoor, and the trapdoor has a receipt.
And if part 4 ignores the bench's failures, the loop did not close. It merely continued.
Which is the difference between a series and a system.